The staff recommendation. Okay, great. Okay, great. Right, Jason, are you aware of Councillor Pascoe's
motion for option one?
Yeah, so
Yes.
he's wanting option one, which says, keep road open, return to pre-innovating streets layout, which, as I understand, means removal of the mural and the slow speed bumps.
Yes, that would be the intention. Yeah.
So that's what your outcome is? Okay, great. All right, so we've got that moved and amendment. Councillor Gallagher, questions?
And I was reading an article recently about a mini Central Park, and I was inspired by the article, but instead of demolishing the Heritage Founders Theatre, we could probably stitch up Rostrevor Street and achieve something similar. Forgive my humour. But the two things I'll be looking at is the option of getting rid of the parked cars, full stop. So you have so obviously, if we get the workshop elected member session, I just want to know, as an option, what does the getting rid of the parked cars look like, and the speed humps to reduce the speed to 20 or 30k. But what are the dynamics of the gates at either end? So at the weekends that could be closed. You know, the actual stretch. So that would be option. That for me would be one option to look at. And then obviously, if we have a discussion, what would be involved in the complete closure, which obviously, as I understand, and perhaps you can tell us, with the London Street Tristram, you know, the traffic lights there, because there's some right turn, left turn issues where people are using, instead of Rostrevor, they divert into London and then come back down Tristram.
Okay.
So those are all I'm sort of flagging is I'd be interested in a workshop to look at those two options. One is a halfway house option, and the other is the full deal.
Correct. Look, I knew that we wouldn't be able to workshop the options here. It would take too long.
No.
Hence the reason. I don't think you're asking me any questions. You just wanted to reconfirm that as part of the workshop we will be. If the motion
moved by Councillor Thompson and McPherson is successful, then obviously you're just going to say that yes, those two options would be looked at. They're not the only ones, obviously, but
yeah,
that's right. That's right. Yeah,
and that would.
We're not going to do it here.
All of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
we can work through the mechanics and the detail.
We're not going to do that by committee today.
No, not at all. Not at all. But I'm just flagging that.
Making sure. Yeah. Thank you, Councillor.
So just as clarification, is what we see there now, including the lovely parked cars, would stay until such time as we have an elected member session and it goes through a process. Is that right?
Yeah, that's
because in
correct.
essence, apart from the slow street stuff, it's sort of kind of business as usual down there at the moment.
Yeah, we are monitoring the speeds through there.
Yeah.
But yes, the intention would be to keep it as it is until such times that we had the workshops and we've got a clear direction from elected members.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I don't know why I'm asking a question.
Actually.
No,
good.
I'm quite happy to.
Councillor Bunting.
Yeah, sorry, I'm going to ask a sort of an elephant in the room question. I think there's a few of us at the moment want to know, but what's there at the moment?
Okay, so the road is open to traffic, allowing for vehicles to park along the curbside.
Right.
The artwork from the trial has remained, and there are speed cushions in place at either end of Rostrevor Street and in the middle to have, like, I suppose, traffic calming measures in place.
Are there planters there still?
Oh, yeah, there are planters on the islands.
Right, but they're not obstructing anything more than normal? No. They're just sitting there?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. I just wanted to be sure on what I was...
Deputy Mayor?
Okay.
Thanks, Chair. Did you just call them speed cushions?
Yeah.
Because they're the most brutal speed cushions. They busted my bike. But anyway, so would they... Okay, no.
Okay, that looks like that's all the questions. So we've got a motion and an amendment up on the board. If we feel the need to debate, we will be debating both of these together. Do we have a seconder for Councillor Pascoe's motion? Yes, Deputy Mayor seconding. Councillor Pascoe, it's your motion, so you're up first.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Look, I believe that Ross Trevor Street is a street that should never have been closed in the first place. It's an important connection road from Frankton to Hamilton. It alleviates a good deal of congestion because the other two roads that you would otherwise circle around are London Street and Mill Street. It was the wrong street to close. If you're going to close some streets around the city, it was the wrong street for innovating streets. And indeed, if it is to be closed, then the appropriate action would be to have the road stopped rather than have it fiddled around with the way that it is done. There is also plenty of room with footpaths and cycle lanes that could encroach either on the existing footpaths and or the park that's there. So I believe that in its present form it should remain. If we do have a future need or lack of use for the Founders Theatre and we want to turn that whole area into a park, as might be the outcome, then let's review that at that time rather than do what we've done thus far.
Thank you. The mover of the amendment, I'll let you go next. Sarah, that's you.
Thank you. I think that this warrants more discussion in terms of what we want to do with the street, and it's really late in the day, and I just think that it's probably just not appropriate to make any final decisions right now, so let's have some time. And staff have just been flat out with Ward Street, which has kind of been under the spotlight a lot more, so I haven't had the time to really delve into this, and neither have we, so essentially I think it's just pragmatic that we go to a briefing.
Thank you. Councillor McPherson.
I actually don't understand why Councillor Robb's even moving this motion, because the street is open to cars to drive down and to park like they always have, and the only thing that actually is different, to be honest, for a car is the speed cushions at the moment, and they don't stop those people using it. So if it's not broke, why fix it in the meantime while we're talking about having a workshop, which is the staff motion, which I support, the staff recommendation. If we want to talk about the substantive case for Ross Trevor Street being open or closed, I would, as a regular user of that area, including the roundabout that goes into it, and then Tristram Street at the other end, being a West Ward councillor who comes in that way almost every working day, I would say it's the most useless piece of road in the entire city. It's got nothing on it. It's got not even an entrance to Founders Theatre or anything. It's simply a free parking spot for people going in there at the moment. If I had my way, and I did express this to Jason by email, I would have kept it closed. But it's open now. It's not hurting anyone. Leave it there until we have our discussion. Don't jump the gun and try and set up a whole opening closing debate now. Let's do what staff have suggested, which is a good holding action. It doesn't cause congestion, that road. That's completely untrue. When it was closed, there was no more congestion going in there. Anyone coming in in the mornings could turn a sharp left at the free left turn at out the corner of the theatre of London Street and Norton Road, at the intersection there. If you were going the other way, you had two choices. You could go either direction to get out to the west without having to go along Ross Trevor. None of the turning options are cut off by lights or signals or anything like that. It's not hurting anyone as it is now. It wasn't hurting anyone, to be honest, while it was closed. I can't say that I particularly like the colours and all of that of the thing, but that's completely irrelevant to the discussion that the staff proposal and Sarah's amendment seeks to allow us to have.
Thank you. Councillor Bunting?
Yeah, look, and I'm sorry, Rob, I know at lunchtime when I said I was going to support you on this, I thought it was actually more obstructive than it is, so it's actually not doing any harm at the moment as it is, so I am going to go with the amendment, but because I rather like the mural, to be honest. And it's not, I don't mind slower streets. I disagree with Dave that it's a useless street. I think it's a very good commuting street coming through there, and you certainly notice when it is closed, but that's for another day, so I'll support the amendment at this point.
Thank you. Councillor Gallagher?
Yes, look, I read a media article where our Deputy Mayor suggested this should be a mini Central Park, and I was inspired, absolutely inspired. No, it inspired me, and I thought, you know, that's a good idea. I don't necessarily agree with his solution in terms of the removal of the heritage founders, but that's obviously a discussion that will be made in due course. And that's one of the reasons I'm actually keen to have the workshop, is because of that actually idea of, you know, what does the green space look like, and, you know, what does mini Hagley Park or Central Park look like, and other alternatives. And I've outlined, you know, it could very well be that during the week you have slow streets and you know, slow street, but you allow that so-called traffic access, or you close it off, particularly, and there's some traffic treatments, you know, as Dave and others have alluded to. I will say, in defence of Jason and the staff, it was the Hearings Committee which I chaired, which actually gave a time limit to the whole proposal, so you can thank the Hearings Committee for that. But the reality is, number one is actually, if you're looking at status quo is you have access at the moment. Nothing's changed if you go to workshops, so you still have the through traffic, and you apparently have the lovely cars that park all day for free there. So, you know, again, what changes? And just as a minor observation, I noticed in the first day after we reopened the street, the parked cars weren't there for a couple of days, and it really looked lovely. So it actually, you know, there's a whole sort of range of stuff. So in summary, nothing changes as of now. Go to a workshop, let's have a really good look at this, and let's have a genuine conversation about the options for Rostrevor Street. Again, if you want to do a nice West Town belt, don't just hold the white flag out and say the cars can come back in straight away. Let's look at some alternatives, which may still involve some access in that area, albeit at a slower pace, non-parking and all of that, which may enhance the West Town belt. But so I'm with passion and enthusiasm for the amendment.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. I go to speak, and I don't feel strongly one way or the other. And this is one of those occasions where I'm sort of on there. I want to support Rob because I said I would. And
If that's the strongest reason you've got, Rob's in trouble. My example,
and look, I've got to say, anywhere where you can park a car is a good place for me. But I've got to say, I do actually see a future there for an extended park. Should we lose our wonderful heritage founders one day, which I think is going to happen. And I do actually see, Councillor Gallagher's right, I do actually see, I do have a vision for that being a lovely park area. I do think speed cushions must be the biggest misnomer I've ever heard, because every time I go over those, my whole body shakes. And the council owes me $240 for the damage it did to my bike. They're brutal.
Speeding.
They're brutal.
Was that when you went into the garden?
And I wasn't even going fast. And every time I go over them, I curse the council. So that's a big enough reason for me to oppose the bloody thing, actually. But yeah, look, I'm going to support Rob with this, because I said I would. And if we lose, I'll vote the other way. So, thank you. I just don't feel strongly on it. And I actually think we would benefit from a workshop.
If we paid you $240, you'd come across.
Sorry, Rob.
Does everyone know that Jeff's got a bike?
So I'll have a crack. Look, I do get a bit frustrated, and I like plans, I like strategies, I like policies. I'm very much into structure, and I'm a good person to follow the rules. So it does frustrate me when we have these kinds of decisions and debate. We had the opportunity, and all this decision and the future decisions for this absolutely has to be made in the context of the Western Town Belt. We had the opportunity to trial the closure of this road because our idea and our aspiration was to build a big inner city park and through the Western Town Belt. So that is the guiding document and must be the guiding document for this decision. It's not about all suddenly around the table we're going, oh, actually, you know, a big park might be quite nice. We've already had that discussion. So whether the road being closed works or not, or doesn't, that's not for today. That's for the future, and that's for our Western Town Belt. And Councillor McPherson often goes on, oh, coffee table book. He's absolutely right. I love the Western Town Belt plan, and many of us did, and I believe it was a unanimous decision. But we make them coffee table books when we don't bring that context into our decision making. We seem to just do so much in isolation so often, and it's so frustrating. But anyway, that's where I am on this. So I'm very happy to support the amendment for those reasons. Right of reply, Councillor Pascoe.
I cannot sit here and not have a right of reply to
Well,
all
you
this
could.
drivel that I've heard.
Dribble.
Chair Angela, if we were to close this just because it's part of the Western Town Belt, then we should close London Street.
Oh, no,
we should
that's not
close
what I was
Mill
saying.
Street.
You're being
we should
naughty.
close Ward Street outside Girls High because they're all part of the Western Town Belt.
No.
This colleagues, is a case of selecting a street. We got the wrong street. We should fix it and move on. You know, simply to say, let's have another briefing or workshop. How many of those have we planned for today? How many procedural motions have been attempted today?
2.
Because we couldn't make a jolly decision. The feedback I got on this, I may talk to the wrong people, Sarah, but the feedback I got
First
on
me,
this
now you.
closing of Ross Trevor Street was everyone I spoke to said, open that jolly road again. Why the heck have you closed it in the first place? So look, this is an opportunity for us today in this meeting to actually make a decision and not refer it to another workshop and then have it back at another meeting where perhaps we'll find another little chink somewhere that we haven't investigated and we'll say, let's have another workshop to discuss it. And, you know, I think residents are looking out there at the moment and saying, is this a council that makes any decisions or do they go back and workshop it again? So, look, I dispute the congestion. There has been congestion and I think it was, Michelle this morning who mentioned about the congestion and I had some similar feedback on that. And look, we've got a future report on commuter parking. This street may well be a $6 a park per day street that we can add to our revenue pile. So all will not be lost if we bring a few cars back into that street. Thank you, Chair. I've got 38
thank
seconds
you. No,
left.
that was your right of reply.
Point of order. The very last point that Councillor Pascoe, all will not be lost if we bring a few cars back into the street. Direct quote, the cars are already parked on the street right now.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's put that to the vote. All those in favour, raise your hands. Of the amendment.
Of the amendment.
Of the amendment. Thompson McPherson amendment.
Go on, Jeff. Go on. Go.
Sorry, I should have done that electronically. I forgot it would be split.
The motion is carried, noting that Deputy Mayor Taylor and Councillor Pascoe are dissenting.
Okay. Great. Thank you. All right. Oh, sorry.
Sorry. The amendment is carried.
And no. And all those for the motion, please raise your hands. Come on, Rob. Don't. No, he's holding tight. All right. And those opposed, Rob Pascoe is opposed.
Yeah. So the amendment as the substantive motion is carried, noting Rob Pascoe's dissent.
so now we move, do we want a, committee, do we want a 5-minute bathroom break? Yeah, well, I need to just stand because I've been sitting, but I'm aware that staff have been waiting for hours for us, especially John Purcell, who was here at 9:30. 10, 1:45. Yeah. We got to be home by 6 for the PM's announcement. Really? No, we won't need pizza. Come on.
The queues are too big.
Let's start. Okay, so let's move on to item 11. Commuter parking in the central city zone. Thank you, John, for being patient and coming back. It's been a long day. So I'll hand over to you to present your report.
Sure. Good afternoon, people. I'm optimistic this is going to be the shortest parking report in the history of council.
So are we, yeah.
All we're doing here is we're reporting back from, with requested information from the 8th of June committee meeting regarding the location of where we're identifying possible commuter parking locations in the first instance and how we're going to manage those. The commuter parking, and we're going to ask for a initial fee to be set for that commuter parking. The locations that we identified were either highly underutilised, they were located or abused by commuter parking already, or that the current restrictions in place were not fit for purpose. Other than that, I'm quite happy to have the report taken as read and take some questions.
Thank you. John, Councillor Ewan has moved. I'm happy to second. Questions, Councillor McPherson?
Yes, John, I have a question about Nisbet Street. I can understand at one level why it's in the list, but given there's a whole lot of developments happening on one side of that between Ward and Nisbet, that include residential, I'm wondering whether it's premature to change the current usage when we don't know what the demands or otherwise. The demands maybe for no parking, maybe for residential parking, maybe for parking associated with the businesses, not sure. So I'm thinking, yeah, what's the rationale behind including that?
Okay. Nisbet Street in the central CBD area is a bit of an anomaly that people can turn up there and park all day for free right in the central city. Any deployments that we do as far as commuter parking, it's extremely dynamic. It's very easy to actually overturn at a short space of time, so we can put things in and take things away very quickly. So
would we have to go through another process, or is it?
I believe that we should be looking to just have that going through hearings and engagement for gazettings. If we see that there's a need required for a change, it can go through hearings and engagement. We can change those at the next meeting, sort of a basis.
Okay. Could I ask then if that gets included, whether it's possible for your team to have discussion with the development people along there as they come on stream, such as the one down the end, was it Haipurpua, about what their type of usage might be in Nisbet, so that we can be ahead of the game. They're not trying to refit stuff.
And that will actually happen because what we've done is we've identified the areas that we're going to go to the next stage, which is to do the engagement with the local areas around it and discuss with the landowners that we're going to be changing the gazetted use of the parking in the vicinity. And so that will actually happen and come to your next hearings and engagement committee. So that will actually happen there. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Just from an operational standpoint, the hearings and engagement committee now have monthly meetings blocked in just for this purpose.
Excellent.
Fabulous chairing. Yes, fabulous. Councillor Pascoe.
Thank you. Two questions. One is around the, obviously you've got 47k in for CapEx.
Yes.
Where would that be funded from? Is that coming out of existing budgets, or will we require 47,000 to buy those things that go on the road, isn't it? Those
it's fund from our existing budgets. Also, it's a very the figure I'm certain that will come well and under 47, but it's about the signage, the change of signage, paying for our internal communications and bits and pieces like that.
Okay, so why is there no OPEX costs? Because below that in paragraph 44, operating expenditure, is that because we're already staffed up to do the enforcement and so forth?
Yeah, correct. So so the enforcement side of things is already our existing operations, and as far as the platform that we sit it on, we already pay for that platform to be part of operations at Hamilton City Council, so there is no increased OPEX for running commuter parking.
Okay, last question is, you've got there some particular streets that will become part of the initial rollout. Should we be identifying in the consultation other areas that are likely to come on board? And I know Councillor Dave's question was sort of dealing with how do we add further streets on afterwards, but should we be signalling, and I did put Ross Trevor Street down as one of the streets in case the last one got through, but you know, there's Seddon Park, there's Memorial Drive, there's a number of other areas which we've previously identified that could become part of this and that we perhaps could identify now, even if they're not part of that initial rollout.
Yeah, good question, Councillor Rob. It's actually, I had a chat with the governance manager on exactly that question just before. We have identified 450 spaces within the CBD central that could transition across to commuter parking. What we're looking to do is do the initial deployment, and we want to, it's a new product, so we want to grow it organically and see where the growth is or not, and then add extra availability around the areas where there's shown a need for it, so supply and demand. If we do this again, then in taking advice from the governance manager, I will then ask whether we go directly to hearings and engagement for that, to cut down on this extra time.
To cut down the,
absolutely,
bureau.
So the next one, we will actually be putting that in our recommendations, that up to a certain point, we would look to just go straight to hearings and engagement for a gazetting process.
Yep, okay.
But we want you to be comfortable with us in the first instance.
Yep, sure. Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Chair.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Councillor
John.
Gallagher?
Yeah, these are so basically these are the transiting from the 2 hours free to the all day. That's basically
based on the criteria that we mentioned before.
So you're taking existing paid spots. You're not into the freebies at this point. You're transferring the 2 hour free parking and then $6 for 3 hours to make it $6 for all day.
Generally, yes. We're taking the criteria that's identified in point number 12. We're taking the ones that are underutilised. We're taking the ones that are already being abused. And we're looking for ones that aren't actually fit for purpose around businesses and transitioning those into all-day commuter parking.
So there's a whole lot of other freebie stuff. For example, which you can't do because it's reserved, the concrete, V8 Memorial concrete pad outside the Korea Pacific on the West Town Central Park belt.
Yes.
So that's a sort of in a limbo area because you couldn't even, I'm not sure, but so are you looking at those, and then you've got the stuff by the lake. You know what I mean, how we had the original
absolutely.
plan.
Yes.
The next bit of work would be to look at the wider implications.
Yeah, and we're looking to look at under that criteria of point 12, we're looking from the inside of the city out. So we're sort of saying, like the more desirable locations will end up being paid locations, and then move out from there and organically grow it as we see the demand, the people are paying for the parking. When it fills up, we'll add more to it. And then under the bylaw, we need a bylaw change, and it's already addressed in there, that on-street parking with a monopoly at this stage, we can't actually put a dynamic figure in there.
So you know how you, at the moment, you have marketed people to pay for the private off-street parking, and then you have the freebies, which spreads all over the places I've alluded to. This is a brand new paid spaces. Are we anticipating custom, given the fact that people, they don't park there anyway for the 2 hour free, or else they go for a freebie or off street? Are we actually, what's your predicted uptake that people are going to pay the $6 a day when there's a whole lot of other free stuff on offer?
That's why we're moving from the inside to the outside. We'll notice that some of the locations that we've put around here have already got like Wilson parking spaces for $11 all day. Right. So we'll put it in at $6, we'll grow that, and then after the bylaw changes, we'll be able to increase the price of that, and we'll be looking for, under the bylaw, for you guys to set a range of between, say, $6 and $15 a day. As we see the occupancy increase, we'd either add more to it or we would increase the price, and then we'd meet the market as far as what those spaces were worth.
in terms of the price drivers, so you basically, even if you had something at $15 a day, which is the premium space, you'd still be looking at, the next tranche, subject to, at the $6, $5 a day mark or whatever, down by the things by the lake and the railway station and stuff.
Yeah, like I say, as we grow it organically, if we put in so instead of putting commuter parking across the whole of town and seeing vacant space and a whole lot of image and reputational issues coming up about us, what we want to do is we want to put an area out there, look at its uptake, and then add to it rather than disperse a whole lot out there and then find them unused.
Just a final question, the private stuff, the off-street stuff where you pay.
Yes.
Is their occupancy rate quite full?
Just like anything, what they do is they identify a rate, and the standard thing in the industry is that when you get to like 90% full, you put it up by $1. It's just the simple way that they seem to do it, and that's why now I've read down by Anchor House, the space which Wilson's got beside there was $11 last week. It's now $12 this week. The Fonterra people use that car park a lot.
Yeah, so they've got their captured market.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So through the chair, during the 10-year plan, there was a commuter parking resolution from year 3 onwards for the city fringe. So this resolution is around the current annual plan confirmed 2-hour free parking area already within zones 4 and 1, but that does not prevent council making a decision to expand that.
Thank you. Councillor McPherson?
Question I forgot before, which Martin's touched on, that, and it's an area outside the initial CBD, the passing red concrete area. Now, we're continually told by staff it can't be done because it's a reserve and there's a whole different set of things that have to happen there. I would ask, my question really is, I want to hook that into the system, and obviously because it's a bit further out you might charge a lower price to start with, but it seems to me that costs the public of Hamilton a lot of money to put down that metre thick concrete or whatever the hell it was there, and that we should be recouping some cost rather than free and unregulated parking. At least the on-street parking is marked. It's totally unmarked and unregulated or self-regulated chaos down there. Doing a quick count of the number of cars in there, we could be making $120,000 to $150,000 a year out of that alone for public transport or whatever in the city. I would like to have it come back as part of the parking report at the next meeting, perhaps, what it's going to take to make the change, what steps we have to go through so that we can convert it from a technical reserve, which is obviously not in practice, to something that we can charge for car parking on. Is that possible, Evelisa?
It's possible to bring back a report. I'm just sort of mindful of the September meeting that is turning quite large in terms of reports for our staff. So would it be okay to bring it to, if we could bring it back to September,
I guess
that's
it
good,
depends
but
how
then
long
one
it takes
later.
to get, because that thing we're told is going to take longer to set up legally than any of the ones that John's talking about. So couldn't we, I want to give us the chance to approve its starting, because it's, you have to get Crown permission to change from reserve status, for instance, things like that. So, and that someone told me once for another park it was going to be 3 to 6 months or something to even get them to read their letter.
So can I recommend we put that down as a staff action to bring that back to the next
Yeah, it might be, I'm not asking for a whole big report.
Yeah, and
just as part of the
as a
GM's report, these are the steps we'd have to take, and if we want to take it up, we can see what's involved.
That's I can work with Maria Barry on that. Yes.
Yeah, if you would.
I was just going to add to that, that it would be are you looking for permanent and temporary solutions? Because of course that again is also connected to the Western Town Belt, and we haven't really decided. Yeah, permanently what we would want to do with that spot. Might be a good park and ride.
I might point out that passing red isn't just in the West Town Belt area, some of it's out further.
Outside, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yep. Great, thank you. Questions, carry on. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. So I just want to clarify, just to make sure it's straight. These are areas in the 2 hours free parking zone, aren't they? Because that you're talking about, aren't they? These are the outer areas in there.
Yes, Nisbet Street is additional.
Yeah,
Nisbet
plus
Street was a
Nisbet Street.
special sort of a thing.
Which is an anomaly. Because Councillor Robb referred to Memorial Drive and Seddon Road. That's the other stage of the commuter parking that we're talking about, isn't it? That's not part of this.
That's not part of this,
That's right, right. So I have some concerns about the suggestion of bypassing this committee and going straight to hearings and engagement with 2 hours free streets, because I would hate to see the integrity of that eroded bit by bit by bit by bit. Do the recommendations as they stand allow you to go directly to hearings and engagement?
No.
If you want to do that, or you still have to come here?
Comes here.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gallagher?
Yes, I've just recovered from my panic, shock, and again, what I would ask Eva Lisa or the team is, with the McPherson idea, is that you have two sections of the so-called passing red. You have the section in front of the iconic Kore Pacific Whānau, which is being built, and part of the iconic Hinemoa Park, iconic West Town Belt, which cars seem to be a strange addition. But I'm just wondering, on the other side, however, you have the triangle, Mill Lane and Mill Street with the rugby club. So if you come back in that report, what I would ask is you actually split that, give us the options there, because I do agree that it's crazy to allow free parking, but I'm not. So in other words, they're both reserves. So just if you could deal with both sections, because you're going to you'd have to have pay stations on either side, and it may well be that one car parking fees helps fund the completion of the iconic West Town Belt in terms of greening it up, or pot plants, or street art. Do you see what I'm getting at? It's two sections of that memorial tarmac.
Yeah, we hadn't included anything that was covered under the Reserves Act in this type of report, because it's a completely separate.
And that's certainly, in my view, very not urgent, very non-urgent, but it's actually a discussion that eventually we should have around, what we can and can't do, or should not do. And then what I've got as part of that longer term discussion, even the area. The question was, can staff be incredibly responsible and split that report so that we look at both sides and prevent the absolute massacre of the West Town Belt?
Okay.
No, it's all right.
I'm sure we'll do that.
Come on, we're going to be here very late. All right, that's all of the questions. That's a statement I'm making. There's none on the list, so thank you, John and Jason. All right, so we have a motion, which is the staff recommendation by Councillor Wilson, and it was seconded by myself. Councillor Wilson, did you want to debate?
No.
No? Wonderful, neither do I. Deputy Mayor does.
I very, very quickly do. Look, I support this change simply because these areas are on the outer fringe of the 2 hours free zone, and they're less utilised by shoppers, as John says. It makes sense, therefore, to repurpose them for commuters. And I also think it actually enhances the 2 hours free offering a little, because the smaller the area gets, the more the wardens can get around and the more effective our policing is. And because they are in the 2 hour free zone and thus relatively central, I will support a 6 hour commuter charge. I won't necessarily be supporting that $6, so I won't be supporting that necessarily out on the fringes of the central city. One aspect of the report that I definitely do not agree with is the idea that the number of car parks on the list can be actively added to on an almost casual basis on point 26, and the suggestion on point 27 that these additions skip this committee and go straight through to hearings and engagement. I think that's a classic opportunity for Councillor Wilson's friend incremental creep to come into the picture. And I think I don't want to see the 2 hours free product bit by bit chipped away at without an oversight of this committee of the big picture. I don't think that would be in the best interest of Century City retailers or shoppers. But overall, I support the change, and I emphasise to the media or the public, media not here, that this is on the periphery of the 2 hours free zone, and the 2 hours free parking zone is still alive and well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gallagher?
Yeah, look, the only thing I wanted just to stress to the General Manager is that the other stuff we were talking about, you know, the passing red, and that's for another time, another report. So in no way do I want to, for staff to, you know, for your team to be overloaded. You've got a singular piece of work to do here. That obviously is utterly separate from a long-term discussion about the other areas, okay? That's all I'm saying. So, yeah, and we proceed. And obviously, I trust Councillor Wilson as Chair of Hearings and Engagement, but I do seriously think the point that the Deputy Mayor's raised around ongoing referral back to here, and you know, in terms of that process is quite legit.
Thank you. Councillor McPherson.
Councillor Gallagher's speech has inspired me to respond, and talking about passing red and other things being, in his words, a long way away, suggests to me that he's forgotten that in the LTP, as the General Manager has already told us today, in years 2 and 3, staff have to start working on those areas that are, quote, a long way away. In other words, they're not that long away because we have to have them in place before the end of this financial year to start sometime in the following year. So where I'm signifying that we'd like some information on the one that takes the longest to fix in enough time so we can actually get it started along with other areas that don't need the big legal rigmarole because they're not classified as parks. So if Councillor Gallagher would like to just relax a little bit and you know, go with the flow, then I'm sure he'll be satisfied in the outcome at the end.
My definition of long was 2 or 3 months.
Okay. Councillor Ewan, did you want to exercise right of reply?
Absolutely not.
Fabulous. Always one for process. Right, let's go to vote on the show of hands. All those in favour? There are none against. That's carried. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, let's move on to item 12. Oh, Chris is speaking to treatment plant upgrade. Hello.
Yeah, good evening, elected members.
Good evening. Oh, no, it is too. Well done, Christopher.
All right. So this report, so Council have a program of major upgrade works at our water and wastewater treatment plants. So this report provides an update on delivery of that overall program and also highlights some key recent milestones in completing, particularly a major process upgrade at our wastewater treatment plant. Attached to the report on attachment 1 are a few construction photos of the completed works there, and that's on page 195 of the agenda. So we have an ongoing program of further upgrades to deliver at both the water and wastewater treatment plants in accordance with the recent long-term plan decisions, and those are outlined in the report. So the report's primarily an update report, but also seeks approval to engage suitably experienced resources to support delivery of these projects moving forward with project and construction management expertise. So other than that, I propose to take the report as read and happy to take any questions.
Right, thank you. I'll move when we're ready. Are there any, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Councillor Wilson, question?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. In light of our good friends in Wellington who are currently contemplating stealing assets of Hamilton ratepayers, I'm just wondering whether or not we should be investing in them.
Look, that's probably
Oh, sorry,
outside the realms.
Borrowing our assets.
Yeah, I'll let Maury take that one, and probably more in regard to the water
Hospital
reform
pass.
discussions rather than a project delivery.
Hello, everyone. Yes, it's critical that we continue to invest in our infrastructure, particularly at the treatment plants, because they are our tool to ensure compliance moving forward. So I think it would be unwise to not invest in those particular assets.
You knew the answer was going to be that, Councillor Wilson. Okay, there looks like there are no other questions. There's a level of naughtiness that has entered the room, I feel. It's the silly vegan lollies. See?
Somewhere in here there's a joke about passing emotion.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favour, raise your hands. There are none against. That's carried. Thank you. I see all around the country toilet paper is being loaded up into trolleys as we speak.
As long as it's not wet wipes, we're good.
There's some very embarrassing photos of people that I'm sure they're like, oh no. Okay, item 13, the bylaw review. Is this you, Robin? You must like us, you've been here all day.
Yes, I did notice.
So this is page 198, statement of proposal.
Okay, so the traffic bylaw, under the standard requirements, is due to have its review every 5 years, and so we've done an update of that draft bylaw. It basically incorporates a good tidy up. It includes, where we can, preempting what we think is going to come through the Accessible Streets regulatory package to deal with things like e-scooters and that sort of thing. So we're adopting some of the terminology that they have in there around transport devices so that we're ready to go when that comes through. And also sets us up for dealing with technology and those sorts of things. So on that basis, I'm happy to take questions.
Great, thanks, Robin. Councillor Thompson.
Chair, Robin, where does it say in here, is this where we say you can't park on the footpath in Boom?
Yes.
Where does it say that in here? Because I just couldn't find it, but it may have been worded in a way that
Yes.
is kind of a roundabout.
Yes, it'll be in there somewhere.
Okay, I'll take your word for it, but
Thank you. Yes, it does basically state in there that you're not allowed to park on Boom unless it's signed otherwise.
Right, and the footpath.
Yes. Well, footpath is a standard legal nationally. We don't need to define that.
A cultivated area, that's why you couldn't find it.
Cultivated areas, correct.
Oh yeah, I searched Boom, but I...
Yes.
Right,
Yeah,
I
so
thought Wellington just had to pass something about not being allowed to park on footpaths recently.
I don't believe so. That's because that's road user rule.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And the other question was just accessible streets. Will we have to make amendments again when that comes through, or how are we preempting it?
It's possible we might do. I've done my best to preempt what I think is likely to be incorporated in that. It may be that some of the registers get changed slightly, but we don't have to go through the full bylaw process in order to update those registers.
Okay.
So I've taken an educated guess at this stage.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pascoe.
Yeah, thanks, Robin. Thanks for all the work on this. Obviously, there's been a lot with all the changes. I'm just wondering if the policy could include a definition of vehicle, even if it repeats what is in the Land Transport Act, so that we get an idea of what a vehicle is compared with the growing number of other devices, that some of which we know about and some that we may not know about. And I know you refer to that Act, but the definition of vehicle from that Act isn't in the policy.
Yeah, we could, but basically the words would be as per that Act.
Yeah, no, I realise that, but just to...
It's in the definitions. Motor vehicle means a vehicle drawn or propelled by mechanical power and includes a trailer, but does not include a running vehicle on rails.
Is that all it says in the Act, does it?
Yes,
And
it's
it
not that
carries
exciting.
on.
It's not that
Okay,
exciting.
A
I was
pedestrian
obviously looking somewhere else.
controlled machine, a vehicle designed for amusement, a trailer running on, yep.
Okay, all right.
Page 213.
Okay, I must have looked at somewhere else where it just said it was as defined in the Act. Can you explain 13.1 on cycle paths? Because I wasn't sure whether that means that cycle paths could also be multi-use.
Yeah, Monty is
It's
yeah,
been a long
different
day.
again, isn't it? Okay, let me find.
13.1 is on, I had it up here.
Page 222.
Vehicle or motor vehicle should be the same, shouldn't it?
Roads, parts of roads in the cycle paths register.
Okay, so just, I guess to start with, cycle paths versus cycle lanes. So cycle paths are your shared, generally off-street, so your likes of Western Rail Trail.
And Waiwiri Drive's
for
got a whole
example.
bunch, haven't they? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
yes.
okay.
So that's the sort of paths that we talk about. And that's why it talks about parts of roads.
Yeah, okay, no, it makes sense now, yep, okay. And last question, and I know we're running out of time, just on window washing at intersections.
Yes.
What have we done, what are the effect of the changes that you've made to this policy that will, I presume, give more power to police and anyone else to stop these bandits from washing our windscreens and seeking koha for it?
Nothing. There has been the full availability through the bylaw when we did the review last time to make it as easy as possible. The reality is it is something that the police have to enforce.
Yep.
And I guess as Inspector Jeff talked about this morning, they are focused on risk.
Yeah.
And we are lucky that we don't have many cases where people are injured as a result of that activity.
Yeah, okay. Does this strengthen that, does the changes that you've got in the bylaw, and I haven't referred it.
I think it widens the definition
It just
of trading.
gives them more teeth if they need to, if they decide that they've got the resources to actually act on it. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Rob, we've just looked up the Land Transport Act definition, and in here it says motor vehicle, which is what I read out, and then there's also vehicle, which could be a shopping or sporting trundler, a pushchair, a pedestrian-controlled lawnmower.
Okay, oh
So
well,
that's under the Land Transport Act, so that's quite confusing though, so, isn't it? Any rail vehicle, an article of furniture. So I guess if you're having races with these chairs.
No, that's still not a motor vehicle.
No, it's a vehicle, not a motor vehicle. Okay, that's the difference.
Tim the Toolman Taylor comes to mind, but anyway.
I reckon that was a great show. Okay, Councillor Van Osten?
Oh, just a quick question with regard to freedom camping. I see we've made no changes to that.
Correct.
But in light of our pinch on hotel rooms and accommodation, is there any growth in the desire to use our roads in that kind of a way?
I'm not aware of any issues. It has floated to the top in previous years, but it hasn't been something that I've heard a lot about more recently, so I'm not aware of any.
And is our position more or less permissive than other cities around the country?
I think it's fairly probably reflective of the type of city that we are. You know, some of the other cities, more coastal, they've probably got greater areas that it's more suitable to do that if you're in a self-contained vehicle. I think that's the biggest issue is just making sure the vehicles are fully self-contained.
And they need to display that, presumably?
Yes.
Okay. And we police that, or?
It's only on a complaints basis that we deal with that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm happy to move the staff recommendation. Thanks so much, Robin. And that's on page 198, seconded by Councillor Pascoe. I'm not going to debate. No? Councillor McPherson, did you want? Oh, you said aye. Excellent. Yep, aye. Wonderful, that's been carried. There are none opposed. Okay, we're nearly there, people. We're nearly there. We do need to make it home before 6 o'clock. All right, so we're on to item 14 now, the General Manager's report. There's a lot of stuff in here that I know we'd be keen to go over. I'm in your hands whether I can go through each item, or you can, so we don't end up jumping around, or we can do it by exception. Okay, well, let's, yeah. Okay. All right, so the first one, did you want to say anything to your report? No, take it as read. Okay, so look, the first one is on page 249. It's the setting of speed limits consultation. That's really just an update. Any questions on that one? Councillor McPherson?
No, not on that one.
Not on
I'm
that
on
one? Okay.
Watershed.
Okay. Worley Place. There's options there. It says basically just that due to high workloads that the report will come to a future meeting. Yep, great. Low cost, low risk. Program update. There is a note for that one. Oh,
So,
yep, do you want to talk to that?
So in terms of the low cost, low risk, there is a note in the staff recommendation regarding the low cost, low risk walking and cycling program to accommodate the Enderley area, which was talked about in public forum this morning for Martin Road and Insole Ave.
Yep.
So that's just noting that change.
Did that move anything else further down the list?
Yes, it did.
Always does.
It always, yes.
Discovery Drive one, is that still there?
Yes.
Great.
So Councillor Bunting and Pascoe, what are your questions on?
Yeah, my question's on.
Is it on this one? Okay.
Okay, so,
all
yeah,
right, well, do you want on your 40K, okay. Great, yeah.
so
Councillor
me
Pascoe
first?
on this
Okay,
one?
thank you. Look, I just wanted to make sure that when we're looking at Enderley, whether we're not looking at Enderley in isolation to the current work that's being done around Five Crossroads. You know, we've had community meetings on that, as well as what's happening in Crosby Road, which is only another couple of streets over. So I'm just keen to make sure that staff are aware that there are things happening in those areas which may impact on Enderley, but even if they don't, it would seem a pity that, you know, the three aren't being considered, the three are being considered in tandem, so that whatever outcome is achieved in Enderley doesn't counter what we're doing in the other two, on the other sides of it.
Yes, that is correct. We are looking at it. So the Fifth Ave and Crosby are all to do with Eastern Pathways and Eastern Pathways connections. And Martin Parks was one of the people that was involved with going out and meeting with the community. And that's why we've identified that some of this work we won't be doing immediately. We will tie in with those Eastern Pathways.
Great, thank you. That's all I wanted to know. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so on page 252 then, Councillor McPherson, the school zone?
Yeah, point 31 confuses the hell out of me because it says we're part of a trial of 30k variable school speed limits. Great. And then it says immediately afterwards the signs are static signs. Those two are mutually, the static one is not a variable one. The variable one is the electronic one. So, then I read on, I can't work out whether we're going to be putting fixed solid 30k signs alongside 40 or vice versa. It's really not clear what we're actually doing here. Okay. And it's got a picture of a 40k one, which adds to the confusion. When the heading's 30k. So what is it that I would see driving along to Aberdeen School on the side of the road?
So what you will see is a sign that looks very much like the one that's shown in the diagram, but a 30 on it.
So Bunty would have got up with his 3 sticker and stuck it on the for on the solid one. What about the variable ones
So
there?
the whole point of this trial, because the variable electronics are expensive to install and are expensive to maintain. So the point of this trial is to work through, and it's what was done in Australia, where they had these, what we call static signs, that indicate the times that a variable speed limit comes into effect. Now, that 40k speed limit sign has been used currently on the quiet side roads where we've had the variable electronic signs in
Yeah, but
place.
hang on, my confusion hasn't reduced. It's, if anything, increased. Are you saying there's going to, depending which direction I approach Aberdeen, whether I come on Aberdeen Road or the back road, in one of them I might see a 40k and the other I might see a 30k sign?
So you will see initially a 40k because they're in part of a safer speed area, and then immediately outside the school areas you will see a sign that looks something like this, and the reason why I haven't got the sign is because it's still being developed by Waka Kotahi, but it is a sign that'll be something
what's
like
to
this.
develop about changing a 4 to a 3?
They are doing a number of changes within it, and I'm not able to discuss the detail of that unfortunately, but it will look slightly different to this.
So, yeah, but I'm trying to get at, I mean, if I'm turn off Rifle Range Road onto Aberdeen Road, go along over the bridge towards the school, at the moment, I'm pretty sure there's a variable electronic 40k speed sign somewhere along that bit as you approach the school.
These are within the 40k areas, so Aberdeen I think is one that we might have to drop because the speeds were too high, but it's a permanent 40. These are in areas where we've got a permanent 40 in place.
No, I don't know, hang on, I think we're speaking different languages here. You're going to have 30 and 40k signs outside these schools.
No, they're going to have 40s as you come into the greater area. In the immediate school area, you will have a sign that says, at these times, on school days, you need to go 30.
So that's the variable bit.
Okay, so when we get feedback from the travelling public through those areas that they're confused about which speed limit they're supposed to be sticking to, because they're seeing both from your answer, what are we going to be saying?
That is part of the trial. As I said, in Australia, when Australia first rolled out their variable speed limits around schools, they were all done with static signs. They didn't have any electronic
Yeah, but we've
ones.
already got...
So
I'm not talking about static, the value of static versus that. I'm talking about seeing two different bloody speed limits.
we will not be putting the signs up where you can see both of them concurrently.
Yeah, but one after the other? If I come in along Aberdeen Road from Rifle Range and I see a 40k variable, and then 50 metres down the road I'll see a 30k static. That sounds like what's going to happen.
We won't be putting it in a location where there is an electronic 40 variable. It will only be in places where there is a permanent 40 in place.
Right. Can I ask to see a map showing road? I've seen them for, showing where 40k's are,
Yep.
showing where they are and what they're going to say.
Yes.
For the 4 schools, because honestly, I think it's a mistake if we have every school should have only one or the other, not
I quite
both.
agree. I quite agree. And that's part of the trial, and we will be making sure that you don't, within your, distance of
I'm
travelling.
not just talking about what you can see at one point in time, because these vehicles will be moving along through stretch. I mean, take the Orbiter bus, or one of the buses goes down Thompson, along Aberdeen, up, can't remember its name, to Ellicott. And that's passing 2 different entrance directions that you can get to the school. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like they're going to be,
We've got maps ready to go for the Hearings and Engagement Committee. I can share them with you.
Robin, now you can, just to clarify, so our use of the term variable is an electronic sign.
No, we use a variable speed limit means it changes at some point during the day. Now, we in the city have variable school speed limits because where we get those changes happening are for schools. But Naronga Gorge, for example, in Wellington has a variable speed limit, and depending on the weather and the traffic congestion and that sort of thing, that also changes. Then, so that's the speed limit itself. Then you have different types of signage in place to show when that comes into effect. And you can have a static one, which is what's shown in the report, and that basically just sits there all the time and looks like that, versus an electronic sign which may change by time of day. Now, it may change, for example, Naronga Gorge always has a speed limit on it. Most of our electronic ones are blank most of the day and only come on when the 40's in place. So it just depends on where they are. So there's a speed limit type, which is variable, and then you've got the signage.
So those variable ones are only variable between nothing and 40. They're not. They couldn't, for instance, have a 30 programmed into them. Or per day.
We have been progressively upgrading our electronic signs in anticipation of the change that the speed limits rule will bring in place later this year, so that we have the majority of signs available to literally change the electronic signs. The point of this trial is, like, the electronic signs and those locations are relatively easy to change. This is to try and work through those locations where we've got the permanent 40's in place, but we still have a desire to get a 30 for the school within those safer speed areas.
Why wouldn't we choose schools for the trial where we can do both electronic and static at 30?
Because we're comfortable that the electronic signs will work fine. We've got good history with that. This is about trialling the sign for using a static sign within an existing 40k area.
I'm not saying don't do that's completely not what I'm talking about, Robin. I'm talking about why are we keeping electronic signs in those areas, those precincts, still at 40?
We don't.
Well, that's what you said before, and that's what it says down here. Are you saying they're going to read 30?
These signs are going to read...
the variable ones are going to read 30?
In time, the variable ones will read 30.
No, I'm talking about in the trial, because that's what this is talking about.
No, the trial is for static signs, and they're not in areas where there's any electronic signs.
You're saying there's no electronic signs outside Aberdeen School?
That's my understanding, yes. Okay. It's a permanent 40.
All right, I'm going to check some of those because it's not my understanding.
The trial is for areas where there's a permanent 40k in place, and we want to have a variable 30k for the beginning and ending of school, and we're trialling the static sign.
So through the chair, can I suggest, just to get further clarification and actually probably show a visual, because that may be easier to understand, of those sites that are being proposed. This trial is due to run in early October. So Robin, is there time?
So we are consulting on it currently, and we will be taking a report to the Hearings and Engagement Committee to get the resolution in place for that.
Well,
so we do have those diagrams, and I'm happy to supply them.
I'm a bit dissatisfied by the process here, because when we brought in the 40k school signs, the elected members were quite involved in that because it was a strategy and we've been pushing the strategy of trying for the 30 ones, and we approved the idea of going for a trial. But I don't see us being, we're just getting reports which are confusing to say the least.
Okay, so how can we have some involvement? So, Robin, you said that we are consulting with the areas and the schools now?
Yes.
Okay.
So basically, this is a trial that Waka Kotahi are running. They had some requirements in place.
Look what happened with Ward Street.
So they've had some requirements in place. We've tried to come up with some locations where we've got schools within fixed permanent 40k areas to run the trial. on that, with the understanding that we're not trialling the speed limit. We are trialling the sign.
We're not trialling the speed limit, we're trialling the sign, but the sign's got a speed limit on it.
What I'm trying to say is we're making a commitment to the schools that if this goes ahead, we're not going, and the signs are not successful, that we will do something else to retain the 30. We're not just going to put the 30 in for the length of the trial and then pull it out again. So it's making a commitment to the schools and to the community that this is about progressing 30 k's past their schools.
Don't we already have 30 k's past all our schools?
No, we don't,
We have
because you
40.
can't legally do that. That's why we have to do it as part of a trial until the government signs off on the speed limit rule changes, which are due to go through in December this year.
Okay. Councillor McPherson, I'm not sure how to resolve your concerns.
No, I'm going to go and have a look at them because I'll get a better understanding of what's there now.
Okay.
I'll get those plans to you, Councillor Dave, so that you can look at the plans at the same time.
Thanks, Robin. Councillor Bunting?
Cool, thank you. Just look, while you're here, Robin, on something completely different. The cycling things on page 276 on our diligent thing, the St James Huntington path, which was fabulous through Mangaiti. The plan to extend the slow cycle zones through Huntington, St James, around the back there, they still on track? We're still...
Yes, I believe so. Yes,
Great.
the raised safety platforms and the signage, and it's...
Yeah, cool.
I understand so.
Yeah, and I'm getting great feedback from St James about the raised platforms too, so it's primo. Just on that same page, I'm looking at the West Side biking connections. There's two that worry me just a wee bit. Numbers 1 and 2 actually, Killarney and Pembroke. Now, I see that they're packages, so I'm assuming we're exploring taking routes that are either side of that, not necessarily down those two busy roads. Do you know, mate?
I'm sorry, that's Martin Park's area of expertise now.
Yeah. They're indicative at the moment.
I was hoping they weren't going to be too.
Yeah, a fair bit of work before they come back to elected members and have feedback and stuff like that.
But you just pop them on the radar at this point.
Yeah.
Pembroke, they were looking at different options as well, because it's very narrow, so it's really
busy.
early stages, but it could be worth seeing what's possible in terms of, a round table look at it.
Yeah.
And Killarney with the infill as well.
Yeah.
Okay, no, that's cool. That's I'm fine. Cool. Thank you. Thanks, Robin.
I just wanted to make a comment just on Crosby Road. I don't know if you saw my email. That's been not delayed. Well, I suppose it has been delayed a little bit, but there was so much feedback and valuable feedback from the community that it was certainly my strong suggestion that we slow down and we come up with some different options and ideas and then go back to the community. I think we've learnt that we shouldn't put time restrictions on some of these things and actually get the engagement and the feedback right. So Martin and his team are working on that. That letter, as you saw in the exec update, will go out and engagement will continue. Is there anything else? Electric vehicle charging, transport corridor maintenance and renewal contract? That's just saying that will come to us. Yep. Watershed. Did someone ask something on watershed, Dave? Yeah.
Question in relation actually to attachment 3 to do with watershed, which has got the plan for the next, or the expenditure for the current year, finished the year gone actually, but the plan is said to be for 10 years there. I want to check whether this, Emily, is something that our council has been involved in setting, because I want to check that it matches our gully restoration program and other related sort of things like that. Who decided? I mean, because it doesn't say which particular gullies. It just says, like stream stabilisation for any stream around the place. So
So the majority of Project Watershed funding is just to keep the streams clear of debris. So we go through and clean them out. And that's done on our 5, and I'm going from memory here because last time I was in Project Watershed was about 5 years ago. So I think it's about 5 or 6 streams that we have a regular program that we clean out to make sure the water flows. Then there is some discretionary funding in there as well, and that's for erosion control, and that's then agreed with staff at Hamilton City Council and the Regional Council in terms of prioritisation. And then if we require the funding, it goes up through the committees at the Regional Council for funding.
Yeah, there used to be a committee, joint committee of us and them, which they demolished, abandoned, whatever, from memory.
It was the sub-catchment committee,
Yeah,
was it?
the Hamilton catchment committee of it. So I'm just waiting, because we used to have a councillor on that.
Yes, we did, yeah.
Yeah, and they unilaterally disbanded it. Because I know Paula raised this at the meeting we had with the Regional Council a couple of weeks back. So I'm just trying to get satisfied that the gullies that this works on dovetail in with our gully restoration, because keeping water clean is not just a matter of cleaning out stream beds, it's a matter of the right sort of planting along the edge.
Absolutely,
and all sorts of stuff like that. Sort of peripheral, it's seemingly, but actually part of the ecosystem.
Evelisa, did you want to add?
Yes, so the catchment committee conversation regarding representation from Hamilton City Council. So I've been working with the director of the catchment, Greg Ryan, my colleague over at Regional Council, as to how the committees and structures can work together. A conversation has been had that the Project Watershed Service Level Agreement is coming up for renewal, and that will determine, it currently determines reporting requirements through to our governance structures, and so that is an opportunity for us to realign that and then to understand how the catchment committee, whether there is an opportunity for a new subcommittee to be formed as part of that service level agreement. So those conversations will be coming to elected members to...
Sure. Is that coming up to the Environment Committee? I mean, because it seems to me the reports for that actually should be going there, shouldn't they? Isn't that where our gully restoration stuff would get discussed? Not that I'm trying to take stuff away from Angela. I know she hasn't got much on at her meetings.
We'd report. You can take it from us. That would be great. So in terms of the implementation of this work comes through the Infrastructure Operations Committee, and we approve the program for the year forward through the Infrastructure Operations Committee. But definitely a reporting through to the Environment Committee in terms of the programs of work and the joint nature of that. That is definitely something that we've been discussing.
So I can see that Martin is terribly interested in having this discussed at the committee.
And so I have looked, I have requested whether there is
Suddenly woke up.
a governance, a meeting between Regional Council and Hamilton City Council councillors to actually talk about matters in terms of how we work more closely together.
Look, I just want to make sure that we're optimising the joint possibilities there. That's all.
There's also a briefing coming up at the end of September as well, which staff will be bringing back a lot of information on how we manage stormwater in the city. That will include Project Watershed and Nature in the City, as well as our operational programs and growth as well.
Great, thank you. Yep, that'll be helpful.
Councillor Bunting?
No, just Transpower's put out one of those emergency notices again. We made power cuts as well.
What? Are you kidding?
No, they just put out another emergency thing this evening, saying.
They've asked everyone to increase the power supply this time, not to cut it.
Oh, for goodness sake.
We won't be able to find our way out. Well, the way the meeting's going, we'll be all over.
Yeah, if you are driving or in the city tonight and that happens, please be cautious.
World's gone mad. Okay, anything else on the report? I just wanted to say, just on the rubbish and recycling service update and the waste audit, that I guess that will come out to us soon in terms of the numbers, but Hamish and the team worked on a really great video that myself and Norm featured in. I did the voiceover for it, and it's not too bad, the outcome of that audit of 150 red lid bins. It's a little better than what we first thought it was in terms of what is still being put into the red lid bins that can be recycled. But there's still a lot to go. But the video is great, and the staff do an amazing job in this area. And I guess we'll just continue with education, which is good. Yeah. All right, page 248, so there are, I'll move that. There's just the note on Enderley and that future work also for Enderley be considered with other projects in the long-term plan. So I'll move, seconded by Councillor Bunting. You got him first. Any debate? There is none. We'll do that on the vote. Show of hands. All those in favour? Are there any against? No, that's carried. Okay. Water stimulus project delivery update. Myri, thank you for staying all day into the evening. Yeah. Good day, good evening and good night. Yes.
So this is a regular report that comes to the Infrastructure Operations Committee, and it's an information only report, so I would like to take it as read, but happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? There are none. Thank you.
You always do this, eh?
Yeah, you do. You're a good luck charm, I think. Any debate?
Can we put the water first item next time? See if we can catch Myri out.
Councillor Maxine's got a question.
Oh, look, I did have just one tiny little question. In a report earlier in the day, there was a comment about the escalating material supply costs, supply chain delays, large work programs, and construction industry skills shortages. Is that something that's also at risk in those water stimulus projects?
Those risks are more prevalent probably across our long-term plan program. We've got a lot of most of our program across the water stimulus delivery is contractually committed, and the construction contracts are largely in place. So we haven't seen that across this program to date, but most of our stuff's already well underway. But it's probably more of a risk for the I guess the broader capital works program.
Perfect answer. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. And we're in debate, but can I just quickly say, Myri, great reporting on this. Those of us that wanted to keep an eye on some of the line items from the stimulus package have been contacted by Myri, and she's given us a template so we can keep an oversight of those projects. And I'm super excited about seeing the study for the rainwater tanks. And I'm really proud actually that we pushed for the security measures for water infrastructure. That was a hot thing for me. So, and that's going great guns. That's fantastic. So some government money that we get that we weren't expecting has been really positive, and this is one of them. Okay, let's vote. All those in favour? There are none opposed. That's carried. Thank you. Now, this next item often takes a bit of time as well. Councillor Ewan, you're leaving soon, so this is the external committees update. So I'll go to you first for rail.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I can assure you we continue to apply considerable pressure to enable Te Huia to penetrate deeper into Auckland. I am very hopeful that we'll be making an announcement soon in regards to Puanui and the Strand. Whether we see that commence before Christmas or early in the next year is still for debate, but we believe that will come, as will the third service that will enable those from Auckland to do a day trip to Hamilton. So we're making progress.
Thank you. Councillor Pascoe, did you have a question on the rail?
I do have perhaps a couple of questions on the Te Huia train service. I'm aware of what's going on. There's certainly plenty of media attention. But I just wonder, are there financial statements being prepared to show how the revenue and costs are tracking on a month-by-month basis?
Yes, there are, and it's held by the WRC.
Yep.
Yes.
Are they public?
No, but if I think I could request to get it.
I can take an action, Ewan, to find out and send an email to councillors.
It would be useful to get, on the basis that Hamilton City councillors, Hamilton City ratepayers are funding the operational costs of Te Hui at the moment, solely operating. So it would be quite useful. I'm sort of a bit concerned that the patronage is about half of what the business case thought it was going to be. So I think it's important that we have got some oversight and asking the questions on that. So
no problem at all. Chris will pick that up and come back to you. I'm the first to agree, Rob, that it is unoptimised. I've agreed with you.
I've got an idea of what the results might be, but I think there should be some accounting, given that Waikato Regional Council pocketed that $5 million from the previous year and didn't refund that back to our ratepayers or credit it back. So, thank you. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Councillor Gallagher.
Thanks. Given the incredible clogging of Auckland motorways tonight, the train service is extremely useful as an alternative. I've just been texting a relative, who's sort of saying that thank goodness for the trains. Just a very quick question, because Councillor McPherson, I don't want to unduly prolong this meeting, but the AT, sort of just very quickly, because it seems to me, I'm just wanting to see if the AT is getting closer to the Minister and the Mayor of Auckland, to, some of their statements where they seem to be Auckland-only focused, totally Auckland-only focused without the wider regional is a bit concerning. Have you got a bit of an update on their attitudinal?
So AT is advocating in what they believe is the best interest of Auckland's council and the ratepayers of Auckland, and that is to protect the integrity of their rail network post the implementation of CRL. And at the heart of CRL is the premise that they go to high frequency CRL is Central Rail Link. They have always said that Te Hui would potentially erode the reliability of AT's metro services once CRL is implemented. Of course, CRL won't be implemented until earliest 2024, more likely mid-2025. We are saying, first of all, that shouldn't stop us from optimising the current service. And second of all, we believe that by taking some additional steps to improve and introduce technology, ETP and push-pull safety case, that we will be able to operate in thin slots, where currently we're limited to thick slots that limit our dwell time in Puanui to 90 seconds rather than 3 minutes. So the battle continues. We're making some progress. Multiple parties, complex, but I see a light at the end of the tunnel.
The rail tunnel,
Councillor McPherson?
Yes, there's likely to be a lockdown announced tonight. The case is based in Devonport, a man in his 50s.
Who travels to Coromandel regularly.
So we could all be Zooming for the rest of the week?
Tomorrow we're Zoom.
But hey, one thing I'd like to add to what Ewan said is that the rail meeting we had yesterday was one of the more positive ones we've had in terms of a whole lot of incremental improvements. Really do look like they're coming together to start early next year, so that the where you get to in Auckland, the times of the services, the number of services, the number of days, e.g. Sundays, all of those things. Look, there's a better than even chance they're going to line up early next year.
Sounds good. Sundays would be great.
And then that will be the real beginning of the
Yeah.
test.
Yeah.
And once we have it optimised, give it 12 months, and if it's not performing, then we have to have a really meaningful
Then we'll
conversation.
spend more money on it.
But we haven't had a true opportunity to judge it yet.
Okay,
And
let's
I'm
try and
fighting to get it to us.
let's try and finish this for 6 because the PM is on. But we've got Regional Transport Committee, which I sit on. Look, there's a pretty good update there. I don't really feel the need to add anything more. Dave, did you want to as alternate?
The only thing at point 9.8, note that I voted on our behalf against the plan, partly because there was a legal threat which they didn't even alert people to, but I'd heard on the grapevine and was able to basically force it to be discussed. I thought their process was quite appalling of not alerting the membership of the committee to that legal threat, which they'd not only received the threat, but they received some legal advice, which sort of was equivocal about whether, you know, it effectively said that it was an arguable point that was being raised, and we weren't being told if they accepted the plan as it was. So I voted against it. In support of our own submission to the plan, because that was to do with whether it was properly taking account of climate change. That was the sort of central issue. No big deal in that sense, but I was quite annoyed to have reports from the last regional council meeting where it was approved, where the chair of that committee was asked about why Hamilton City Council opposed it, and that chair told the committee that it was just Dave McPherson going rogue. Now, I can go rogue with the best of them, as you know, but it's not his place to say that in relation to that. So I'm storing that up for future reference.
I'm sure you will. Okay, we got 3 minutes before the news update, and I think we want to see that.
Should be late.
Thank you. Yeah, probably, but Regional Connections Committee. Look, I don't want to say anything. I'd rather listen to the PM, quite frankly, at 6 p.m. Sarah, did you want to add anything to the Regional Connections?
Amalgamating a few more routes to get the 5-frequency buses going. So that could result in some complaints, but hopefully a good outcome generally. And there was an update on Cambridge Hamilton, which looks extremely complicated with 4 different territorial authorities having to line up. So all of that's kind of feeding into the thinking around actually reviewing the public transport operating model and asking, they're doing work on whether we actually need to have a different structure to make it all work within the Waikato region. So that will be a really interesting piece to watch out for.
Yeah, cool. All right, done. I'll move the recommendation of the report be received. Thank you. Seconded by, was that you, Mark? Yep, thank you. All those in favour say aye. Any against? It's carried. Thanks, everyone. That was a really long day. And despite Dave sending me the cutest pictures of dogs with pizza in their mouths, we haven't got pizza. Oh, it's super, like...
It doesn't have pineapple.
Yeah.
I think it's